added bonus and something I'm happy about.
Plus, Verso ensures transparency and quality by publishing third-party testing results for each batch they produce, so you know you're getting exactly what you're paying for.
If you want to feel as good as I do and lose some weight at the same time, head on over to the link below at ver.so and use the coupon code Danny, and you can get 15% off your first order. Again, go to ver.so and use the coupon code DANNY at checkout to save 15% off your first order. It's linked below. Now back to the show.
He was like, nobody will ever think that we can create the biggest racket in the world. And for your audience, because I'm a big history guy, and I think you need to know all these bits and pieces because I know we're jumping around. But do you know where the term money laundering comes from?
No.
Comes from Mo Dalitz. Comes from Bugsy. It comes from Meyer Lansky. What they use, the Jewish mob used laundromats to launder money to skim it to keep it away from the government.
Oh, wow.
So
yeah, I think I have heard that before, yeah.
So that's where this came from. And then Mo and Rossetti and Meyer Lansky, they have the reputation that's very different than the Italian mob. The Italian mob is kind of like guys that are going to shoot you up and it's kind of bloody. These guys are much more reserved, okay? And they're like accountants. They really care more about the money in the business being sustainable over a long time. Well, they become very, very successful in the 1940s. So successful that something else is happening in the world that you probably know about. Albert Einstein worked with General Groves in the Manhattan Project. It's successful, 1945. So in 1948, the Jewish state that was still not made yet offered Albert Einstein to be the first president. And it turns out their military arm, which is known as the Mossad, actually have Lansky and Dalitz. They're their guys in the United States, okay?
Lansky and who?
Lansky and Mo Dalitz.
Really?
They were Mossad agents here in the United States. So what do? They go to Vegas and they realize that there's no regulations. It's the Wild West. They build it from the ground up. Everybody in Chicago and the Italian families are making fun of these Jewish guys doing this because they're not bringing in the bank like these guys are bringing in Cuba. 59 happens, and guess what happens? All the Italian guys get turned off. They're losing millions of dollars, and they're furious. Mm-hmm. So you know they hate Castro. So what do? They have their friends, Mo. Mo has been working for 12, 13 years in the desert. And what does Mo do? He steadily and slowly increases profits. But guess what he does? How does he do it? Does he shoot anybody up or do anything like that? No. The first thing he did is he put one-armed bandits in all the casinos. He blue lit everything. Why? Because he paid attention to how people spent money. He realized when you used artificial light, it seemed like people spent more money. So then what's the second thing he does in like 1952, 53? He starts painting all the windows in the casino black.
So you can't see outside.
Can't see outside, and he doesn't want to go outside. Then that's the last thing he does.
Gets rid of the clocks? Is that what he does?
The clocks were gone already.
Okay.
But the best part is then he brings in girls scantily clad and he starts giving people alcohol while they gamble. And what does he basically do? He creates an army of low dopamine idiots in the desert who they don't have to shoot. They go into their pocket and pay all the money to. So, of course, at this time now, after Groves is out, he gets Truman to change the OSS to the CIA in 47. The CIA knows exactly what Dalitz is doing. And they know that they're avoiding taxes. So they decide, we need to go find out, is there any science behind any of this stuff? So where are we right now? 48, 51, 52. So you may have heard of this program called MK Ultra.
Once or twice.
Okay. So MK Ultra is the merging of two things. The first thing gets merged is this idea from Dalitz that they're going to study it. Then there's another guy who's a 1937 surgeon, SS guy named Kurt Plotkin. Plotkin worked with the Nazis. His idea was mind control through the use of Mexican peyote. So he starts doing his stuff, and the CIA is looking at the effect of light and wireless technology and things like that these guys are using. And they begin to study it. They hire a guy named Sidney Gottlieb. Gottlieb runs the program from 53 through, which we think 64 before, of course, all these things are destroyed. But there's a lot of interesting things that the government finds out that is transferred to DARPA. When does DARPA first form? 1958. So all this information from the CIA and FBI are transferred into DARPA.
Right.
DARPA then takes it the next level. They go and they hire a guy in New Orleans. I told you we'd eventually come back to New Orleans. A guy named Alton Ostner. He's first an FBI asset as a surgeon, but then he becomes a CIA asset because of this issue here. They go and hire a PhD researcher named Delgado, and he's working in the Tulane neurosurgery department and neurology. They get him out of that really quick, and they send him to Mexico, and they start putting wires into the bull's head to find out, can they stop and control the bull using electric signals? Why? Because they already have started to learn about Becker's work. So now this is the idea. Now they're trying to execute. They're trying to use this as a weapon.
Yeah.
Got it?
Right.
So what happens in this whole time, the crazy stories that you've heard Bobby and I talk about on the Tetragrammaton podcast, where Gottlieb basically takes the Air Force plane over St. Louis and drops LSD on the whole city in the mid 1950s to see the effect. They found out mescaline didn't work, so the next step after that was to use LSD. That's one of the famous things that we did find out from the Church Commission that they physically did. So this is what I would tell you is Operation Northwoods, probably negative 2.0, which is when the government thought it was a good idea that they could just do whatever the fuck they wanted to the United States populace, they wouldn't know it, so they didn't need any informed consent. Okay? A lot of people talk about Tuskegee and the airmen and the syphilis. Dude, there's a pattern with the industrial military complex. When they want to do something, they don't even ask for forgiveness. They don't ask for permission either. They just do it. So when they do this and Gottlieb fails, what sightlines are really good for DARPA is this work that Delgado's doing is amazing. So they said, okay, you could do it with wired technology, and they were able to turn the bull off as soon as he was going to spear the matador. They said, let's try to do this wireless. Why? They had all the patents and everything they stole from Tesla. They also had all Marconi's work. At this same time, remember, Motorola is now one of the guys that's the industrial military company. They know that wireless telephony is actually coming. So they decide to employ it here first. So Delgado finds out that actually it does work. You can do it without wires. You don't have to do brain surgery on the animal to do it. And then they asked the next question.
They didn't have to install anything in the brain?
No, they did not. But this was the key step. This is the step where I think your audience, people find it incredulous when I tell them. The next step was, could you do this using light and light alone? And it turns out they found out you could. If you use blue light specifically, it actually destroys the dopamine reward tracks in your brain. Just so you know, Meta and Google today own those patents. Remember who's the Google patent attorney? Nicole Shanahan. So I said, Nicole, do you remember all the work you had to do? And she goes, yeah. She goes, I could never figure out what all this was about. Well, you need to know a little bit about Google's history. Google was formed in 1995 when DARPA gave the search algorithm to these two cats from Stanford. You know about Stanford now, right? Mm-hmm. You talked to me about Huberman, why they don't want to talk to me. You started to put two and two together yet?
Yeah.
So the issue is these guys created the internet. They connected all these colleges all over where the academicians were to share this information. So this information is going all around in this area. They basically then figure out and perfect the delivery of blue light technology through screens. Who is the big tech company in the 1950s and 60s that were doing this? Turns out that's IBM. And IBM is working on liquid crystalline displays. And I remember, this is in the 50s and 60s. You as a young man never saw those TVs until the 90s, okay? And then it got a boost from who? Obama, who made the analog to digital transition so that you'd have to use what? LCD screens. And then what else did he do? We're going to ban incandescent bulbs. Why? Because incandescent bulbs not only have fake blue light, but they also have purple and red, which is what you need as the antidote to blue.
They were banned?
Yeah, well, the first ban was from Obama saying, we're going to get rid of these under the guise that they're not energy efficient because they burn too much. You probably remember when you were a little kid, you touched the incandescent bulb, it's hot as shit.
Yeah.
Well, the proxy that they're using to you is, they burn too much energy because they have UV light and red light in it, and that makes heat. So therefore, we should get rid of that, do blue. But you have no idea that DARPA and the government already want blue light everywhere so they can control you with it. That's the real answer behind this whole program. So what happens then?
Well, how do they control us by putting blue light in front of, our worlds are surrounded by these screens and these these phone screens. How do they control us with this light?
I just told you, they control...
By killing us?
No, they control your dopamine reward tracks. In other words, they're dumbing you down. They're making you much more likely to be preconditioned, which brings us to the other person.
We are dopamine slaves for the most part now. Most people.
Well, you're the guy that's sitting with Zins right next to you.
I'm asking you if Zins are good. Yeah, I can't go anywhere without my Zins. I'm telling you, it's a problem.
But that's the reason why it's all starting to make sense. I'm trying to bring the picture together for you so you understand it. So the chick you just asked me about, Susan, who started YouTube, who's a Google founder. What you may not know about, you ever hear the marshmallow experiment that was done at Stanford? When she was a child, remember, she just died, she's 56, okay? So she's a little bit younger than me. Her mother puts her into this program, which is part of the MK Ultra program, to precondition her mind. Every single tech CEO has been in this program, just so you know that. So she goes through it, and she actually performs better than anyone else. In other words, she will follow the rules and be very compliant. Sergey goes through it, and so does Larry Page. So
what's the name of the program?
It's called the Marshmallow Experiment.
The Marshmallow Experiment. Okay.
It was the second generation of the milligram experiment, which you can actually look at. And what I'm trying to explain to you, there's MK Ultra 1.0 that we all found out about when I was a young man. You weren't even born yet. That's through the Church Commission.
Right.
Two things we found out there. Not only that MK Ultra exists, but some of the things we're doing. But we also found out then that the CIA had 400 people in the media that they paid. Dan Rather and Walter Cronkite. Right.
Yeah.
Dan Rather and Cronkite being, the key players there. So when you begin to start to see the timeline and all these stories come together, Wojcicki gets the YouTube gig. What is YouTube? YouTube is a screen where you're developing videos. You're addicted to it right now.
That's how I make my living.
That's what addiction is all about. Well, guess what? The other question I want you to ask yourself as a young guy that's supposed to be smart, have you ever asked yourself why it is that every screen comes out blue, that they don't have red? You actually have to put software in to change it?
I got mine set to where it turns red after 7 p.m.
Yeah, that doesn't work. Let me look at mine, what it does. That's how it should look.
Whoa. Is that a special app?
Yeah. So you can, we'll talk about it after we finish this. But the point that I want to make to you, the question you need to ask yourself, why is it that every tech company has blue lit screens? I'm going to tell you the reason why. It's because that's how DARPA wants it. They want you to be very addicted to the technology so it's sticky. That way you can be programmed further. So, wow. Oh no, it's even more wow than that. You haven't even got to the wow stage. So what happens with this lady, she winds up being compliant, just like she was with YouTube. You want to know why all these people get censored? She did whatever DARPA, whatever the industrial military complex wanted. That's the reason why people were having their shit removed. If you want to know the reason why Bitcoin content gets removed, is because DARPA is not interested in Bitcoin, because their energy to fuel their whole process is cheap fiat money. Bitcoin is actually a nuclear weapon for them.
Right.
Because you can't print money to do all the covert shit they're doing. She goes and rolls her sleeves up, takes a jab. She gets, the turbo cancer. She dies literally very quickly, within, I think, 6 or 7 months.
Turbo cancer?
Yeah. That's from the SV40 promoter that's in the jabs. She gets screwed by the other part of the story we haven't got to yet.
So when did she develop this cancer?
She just died earlier this year.
Yeah, but how long has she had the cancer? Like, when did she get diagnosed?
6 months before she died.
She got diagnosed 6 months before
she died. She got stage 4 lung cancer, never smoked. Sounds eerily familiar, doesn't it, to Jack Ruby? Remember how he died?
Oh, yeah, that's.
Oh, so why did I lead this way? Because guess what? I just finished telling the
Holy
story.
fuck, Steve, pull up the actual documented account of Jack Ruby, how he died.
His name isn't Jack Ruby, just so you know.
Right, I know. It's
Jack Rubenstein,
yes,
and he
exactly.
also is a Mossad agent, just so you know that.
Let's see what the Google machine says about Mr. Rubenstein. Jack Ruby.
The interview question that decides everything. What AI tools do you use? If you say Chat GPT, you're done.
I'm 51, added AI certified to my LinkedIn last month, got 4 interview requests in 1 week, 1 turned into a job offer.
AI certified, like a course?
28-day program, 15 minutes a day, finished it, got the certificate, uploaded it. Recruiters actually mentioned it.
What if I've never touched AI before?
Perfect. The 28-day AI challenge is built for beginners over 40. You get certified at the end. Week 1, unstoppable. Week 2, proof on your resume. Day 28, you stand out. Tap the screen and start tomorrow.
Type in Jack Ruby. Oh, you can't find his death.
That's not him.
Obituary.
He died right around when Garrison was doing
right when
the trial. The trial.
Jolly West. So after Ruby shot Oswald, Jolly West started visiting him in prison, right?
Yeah. But you know how he got the SV40 though? Wasn't that way. Let me tell you the story so you get it.
Okay.
Because we probably need to jump into the polio story so you understand this part of it.
Search for cancer.
He gets pneumonia while he's in Dallas. He's writing writing the Warren Commission to tell them to get him out of Dallas because he knows Carlos Marcello has got a plan for him. Well, he's going to use the bioweapon that they created on Magazine Street in New Orleans with Oshner. I just got finished telling this whole story in detail at Dealey Plaza to Bobby and to Nicole and to their administrative team. And I have to tell you, the guy that was filming and his eyeballs nearly melted.
So like they're about to melt.
No, it's a good story, but it's the truth. And the way in which you'll find out that I know the truth, that's going to really blow your mind. But the story of Ruby is interesting. He is in Dallas. He's talking to the Warren Commission, says, you got to get me out of Dallas and get me to D.C. because I know they're going to do something to me. He already knows what's going to happen, but he doesn't know how it's going to happen. So he develops pneumonia in Dallas. All this is discoverable by you and your guy back there. Mm-hmm. So the doctors come in and they give him penicillin flu shots. Turns out in that flu shot was the SV40. He gets stomach cancer and dies like that. Just like your girlfriend from YouTube. And guess what? Why was that bioweapon created? That bioweapon was created by the industrial military complex and Alton Oshner to get rid of Castro. Okay? And guess who was the front for this whole thing? The mob was involved in this. Most people don't know this, but Carlos Marcello grew up with Lee Harvey Oswald in New Orleans. So he was one of the guys that was working for him, and Oswald was also in the CIA. So if you want to know the part of the story that no one has ever figured out, is why did Oswald was able to go to Russia, come back with carte blanche and never have any problem? Because he needed to be in a communist country so that Castro would allow him to bring this tainted cigar that he was going to smoke, get the SV40 and die. So that should ask the question in your head, Jack. How'd the industrial military complex, the CIA and the FBI, all know that this thing was going to kill him that fast? Well, I already told you what happened to Susan. Boom. I already told you what happened to Rubenstein. Boom. Now let's get to the real story. So 1951 comes along, and you know the story about FDR. He's got polio. His lawyer starts the March of Dimes. Kids are sending dimes, nickels, and quarters to Jonas Salk. Jonas Salk makes this vaccine. He gives it to the pharmaceutical companies. There's 4 companies that he gives it to. But the one that you need to remember, because your boy's going to be able to pull it up, it's called Cutter Pharmaceuticals. Turns out, Cutter, Cutter. No doctor ever learns about what I'm about to tell you now. Okay? It's been whitewashed from history. So here's the interesting part. Cutter Pharmaceuticals is in charge of growing this. Remember the date. The date is really important for you to get. 1951. When was DNA discovered, my friend? 1953 by Watson and Crick. So we're in the pre-molecular biology age, okay? Cutter tells all the 4 pharmaceutical companies tell Salk that his mix is very difficult to grow, this vaccine. So what do? Salk says, I think we need to use a primate that's close to humans, then we'll have a good culture medium. So what do? They use the African green monkey, okay? Turns out there's something they didn't know. Here's the good part of the story, and getting ready to step into crazy town. They're able to grow the vaccine on the African green monkey. They use kidney cells that they grew it on, okay? They create Salk's vaccine, and guess who's the first guy to test it? Dr. Ochsner in New Orleans at the Ochsner Medical Foundation. Things that you need to know about Ochsner. He was a surgeon. He was very famous for being an anti-cancer guy. He used to tell medical students way back when that if this patient has lung cancer, I want you to come and see it because you'll never see another case in your life. That's how rare cancer was in the 1900s to 1920s. That's this guy's reputation. Where you're catching him right now in this part of his life, he's probably in his 60s. He's the dean of Tulane Medical School. He's also the head of surgery after Rudolph Matas, who's a big famous surgeon in New Orleans that people today would know. Something interesting happens right around this time where he loses and gets thrown out. Do you know what it was? 1951, he brings the vaccine into the amphitheater, the surgical amphitheater, calls the entire medical staff of Ochsner. He brings his grandson and grandchild in there, and he injects both of them with the Cutter vaccine. His grandson died in 7 days of polio. His granddaughter gets polio in her leg. She doesn't die, okay? Everybody who's ever trained in New Orleans knows about this story. Now, younger doctors now, they don't learn about it. I was probably the last group of people, late 80s and early 90s. Do you know why? Ochsner was already dead, but you know who was alive? His son. And guess where I did 2 years of my neurosurgery residency, my friend? Ochsner Medical Foundation. Wow. Oh, it gets better. Hold on. So I'm doing my first year of residency, and you know who's filming JFK in the basement of Charity Hospital? Oliver Stone. So it's going down right then and there, and here I am, a dude from New York in the Deep South, seeing all this shitstorm going around me. Do you know who my ER nurse was? Virginia Garrison, Jim Garrison's daughter. This is the DA that put Clay Shaw on trial for the assassination of JFK. And no one ever made the links that I'm about to tell you. So I'm sitting there while this whole thing is going on my first year, And Virginia knows that in 2 months I'm getting ready to go to Ochsner. And she looks at me and she goes, bro, you better be really careful about what you do when you go there. She goes, because this guy's one of the most nefarious people you'll ever meet. And I'm like, well, what are you talking about? And she starts telling me some stories about what her dad really knew, because the guy that he wanted to put on trial was Alton Ochsner. But they put Clay Shaw on trial. You have to realize something. In this day, putting Alton Ochsner in New Orleans on trial would be like putting Fauci on trial in Washington, D.C. right now. You have no chance of telling the story that I'm about to tell you. So remember, Ochsner's the first ever National Cancer Institute doctor. I told you he's the anti-cancer doctor. So after he does this to his grandchildren, he then turns around and tells the industrial military complex, because that's who is developing this, that, look, we need to slow our roll down. We need to get this right. We need to fix the problem. So they casually turn all the science over to a doctor named Dr. Bernice Eddy at the NIH. Dr. Eddy does all this work from 51 through 53, 54. DNA gets discovered. And guess what Dr. Eddy finds out? All the original polio vaccines that Salk came up with were all tainted with SV40. And no one knew it because DNA hadn't been discovered yet. So she tells everybody in the NIH, she tells everybody in the FDA that this has gone on. And what does the industrial military complex do, my friend? They fucking pass the jab out to 300 million people in the world. And they created the whole epidemic of cancer. And guess what? Did the industrial military complex allow Bernice Eddy to tell this story to anybody? No. So guess what Bernice Eddy did? She got canceled before Becker, 25 years before that. What did she do? She gave a talk in, I think it was 1955, at the New York Academy of Sciences. And at the end of the talk, she drops the little nugget that I just dropped to you. That, oh, by the way, all the polio viruses were contaminated with SV40. And what SV40 stands for those in your audience who don't know, simian virus 40. So that means there was 39 other viruses that are out there. Okay? What do you need to know, my friend, about SV40? This is the only thing. Take a look at me. I want you to look at me and not that. This is the most important thing of this story.
I'm looking.
The SV40 promoter allows things to get across the nuclear membrane to get into where RNA and DNA is and do bad things. Okay? So what does the government do? After Eddy announces this to the freaking scientific world, they defund her lab. They take her out of the NIH. She's lost to history. Here's the best part. You go look today at the FDA and NIH website, you'll notice from 51 through 57, you don't see anybody's name. When I tell you this is better than 2024 YouTube cancellation, you find no evidence of the Qatar incident. You know why most doctors don't know about it? Because of what I just told you. So here I am training, I don't know, this is like maybe 27, 30 years after this event. And why do I find out about it? Not because I learned about it in medical school, because Virginia Garrison told me what went down. And then what did I do? I went to the medical school library and started pulling stories up. Then I went even further. I went to talk to Alton Ochsner's son, who's a cardiothoracic surgeon who happens to do surgery with us when we used to clip aneurysms. When we used to clip aneurysms, we'd open the head, but we'd have to stop the heart to clip them. That's how long ago I've been a neurosurgeon. We don't do it like that anymore. Shit. So in one of those cases, it was a basilar tip aneurysm. J.O.'s open in the chest with one of his other doctors named Keith Van Meter. And J.O.'s sitting there. And I just casually tell my neurosurgery mentor at the time, I said, I'm going to ask him about all this. And he goes, bro, I don't know if you really want to go there. But now here comes the part of the story that you're really going to shit the bed on.
So I don't have any shit left.
I said, J.O., I said, is it true what happened with your niece and nephew about, the polio vaccine. He goes, and this is the crazy thing. This guy was a real chatty guy. I thought he would shut me down. Bro, he started talking to me for almost an hour and a half, 2 hours. And once he opened up about that, then I went for the nuclear weapon. And I mean this literally and figuratively. I said, J.O., tell me, why is it that we have a nuclear device in the basement of a community hospital? It's called a LINAC. And who uses that? LINACs are used to treat brain tumors. I said, I know you guys have done really well here. I said, but that's $100 million piece of equipment. And I said, we can barely get new instruments to do spine surgery in this hospital.
What? So for people who are uninitiated,
I'm gonna